A few days before our opening night, we received a call. We were at the director's house practicing that somebody has filed an FIR against us. Being a creator is very much like running a startup. The difference is the startup is yourself, you are also the entrepreneur, and you're also the brand. And there's mixing costs, mastering costs, editing costs, musicians costs. Making music is expensive, really expensive. It's not the same as just turning on a camera, right? The reason that performance was really cool is because it was the first time I would sing something and I asked them to sing it back, and hearing that many people sing something back to you was just insane, right?
Hello everyone, welcome to the Breaking Uneven podcast. We love to talk shop, uncover the beauty of failures, and play a few games. Today we have with us Avanti Nagral. A singer, a content creator, and the co-founder of Golden Milk Media. So, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
Good, yeah. Excited for this podcast to see, because I think a lot of the ones that we've previously done are very founder focused. But I think in this episode we'll delve into a little more the content creation part and the singing part, which is different from what we've done. So yeah. You studied psychology and global health at Harvard, and then music business at Berklee College of Music, and then directly dove into the world of social media. Have you got that right?
Yes, absolutely. Your research is on point.
In the world of social media, your personal brand is essentially your business. Absolutely. So we want to play a quick little game to understand a bit more.
Okay. So this game is called the Twitter Pitch Challenge, and the idea is Twitter is known for its 280 character limit on every tweet, and that sometimes makes it difficult to convey your thoughts, and that's the challenge that we transfer to you. So it takes about 20 seconds to speak to 80 characters. So could you explain to us your personal brand in 20 seconds, but you also need to use one emoji and a hashtag.
Got it.
Cool.
Okay.
All right, so we have a timer for you, and 3, 2, 1, go.
Avanti Nagral is an interdisciplinary performer, content creator, and entrepreneur using the medium of song and storytelling to share issues and conversations, shed light on issues and spark conversations. How much is it? 20 seconds?
Yeah.
Okay, so emoji, world emoji and hashtag connection.
Ooh,
nice.
Yeah, 19. Perfect.
Awesome. So we know we mentioned that your personal brand is your business, but also your business is your business. Yes. So you're the founder of Golden Milk Media.
Correct.
So let's do the same challenge for that as well.
Sounds good.
All right, so we can give you another 20 seconds. And 3, 2, 1, go.
Golden Milk Media is a new age, socially conscious media house focused on developing films, web series, and other types of audiovisual productions. Underneath its umbrella also has a studio space called the Dream Space Studio, and is looking to connect people globally who require mentorship in the creative space. I missed out the yes. Well, they're technically two separate businesses, so you can get a yes. Yeah. But if you want an emoji, it would be the yellow heart, and the hashtag Halidud is good for you.
Oh, okay. That's different from your that thing, but yeah. So a lot of your journey is already online, and we don't want to delve too much into it, but from being a Harvard graduate to a singer and a content creator is quite the unique path overall. So if you could briefly tell us just how you got there, and then we will change the directions completely.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been pretty clear since I was very young that I wanted to do something that bridged the gap between something in the social impact space and the artistic and media space. I've been singing since I was very little, and I've had a knack for the performing arts. Professionally, I actually started in theater.
Okay.
Wow.
My first professional theater production was when I was 15. I was the featured singer in the Vagina Monologues when they were here. Yeah, changed my life, honestly, the way that the show is. And then when I was 17, I decided to take a gap year. So I'd gotten into college and decided to essentially defer to the following year because I got the opportunity to play the lead role in the show called Agnes of God, where I was playing Agnes, who was the lead role, and it was a singing and acting role, so it felt, like a space that I wanted to develop my skills in. And it was amazing. I learned so much. And we also, a few days before our opening night, we received a call. We were at the director's house practicing that somebody has filed an FIR against us. So it turned into this whole thing. Honestly, if you Google Agnes of God controversy, don't even put my name, don't put India, you will see hundreds of articles about this. And it really taught me a lot because our opening night, for example, had 80 policemen in the audience to make sure no riots broke out. It had reached the Home Ministry. It was insane. And as somebody, I just turned 18.
Yeah.
So I was firstly no longer off limits to the press. So I'd keep getting calls every single day. My parents were like, "You were doing a play. Like, what has this turned into?" But it taught me the power of art. And taught me the power of the voice that you have, and how, clearly the play itself touched upon topics like miracles and child abuse and mental health, and that felt dangerous to some people, and that was really powerful. The flip side to my interests lie in the fact that I've had a lot of health difficulties throughout my life, some pretty major ones as well, and for me, including this one time where I lost my vision because of a brain virus, and during that time, that was actually right before my 10th boards, I came home from the hospital and I was obsessively trying to do math because I felt like I couldn't remember much else, and I couldn't do it, and I pretty much broke down because till that point in my life as a student, I had really valued my identity as being this high achiever, good student and all of that, and in that moment, I didn't know if that would necessarily be the case, right? And so the thing that really got me through that was music, and it felt like the thing that I knew. And so I knew from that moment on, I think these pivotal moments, when I was 15, 17, it was very clear that, okay, there's something here, music and art is powerful. At the time, I thought of it as a medium. Then when this play happened, I was like, oh, even within itself, it's so powerful as a tool, right? And so throughout my life, I've kind of seen these as mediums of expression, vehicles of change, and also places that just give me joy and passion, right? And so when I went to college, it was very clear that I wanted to be able to, as best as possible, understand both landscapes, and I was really grateful that this program started around when I went, and I was able to, study global health, study psychology at a very high level, and I knew that if I one day had the opportunity of a platform, I wanted to make sure that it had some substance and some backing, right? And then, of course, studying voice and music business at Berkeley was also amazing to round out my skills. And so I actually went into college, I think atypically, where a lot of people go into college saying, with the mindset that is going to be the professional stepping stone for them. To me, I actually realized that college was not necessary to what I actually wanted to do, because I wanted to enter the creative world, and I recognized that in the creative world or in the startup world, you don't technically need a degree, right?
Yeah.
And honestly, there were a lot of people who in the industry and otherwise would tell me, hey, why don't you consider dropping out, because so many people are young, and especially at that time, my framework was the music industry and performing arts. Social media happened a little later, which I can mention. But yeah, because a lot of people are young, right? When you think of a pop star, you think of like a 19-year-old, 20-year-old. So I felt like time was running out, and honestly, I felt this huge pressure. So I was performing all the time. I was performing in Boston, New York. I'd come back to India a lot, Southeast Asia, and it was a lot. It was your atypical experience, but I wouldn't have changed it for the world, because I felt like, for me, I felt like a kid in a candy store, where I was able to say, hey, here's themes I care about in the world. I have access to some of the most brilliant minds and some of the most amazing peers. Let's just be a sponge and learn, And to kind of tie up to your point of like, how did you go from Harvard to social media? Basically, so I was a pandemic graduate baby.
So we.
Yeah, how was that?
Like pandemic graduate. We just did the graduation part.
That's pandemic graduation. What would you call
like the real COVID graduates are the ones who started in the pandemic.
Absolutely. We got let off easy. We just had the last 6 months.
Yeah.
I completely agree. My younger brother, who's 4 years younger than me, started college, and then COVID hit, and then so. Yeah, we complained a lot, but they're the ones who really got the brunt of it.
But I mean,
yeah.
You can graduate.
Yeah, absolutely.
You didn't attend your graduation. I went 2 years after.
I also went 2 years later, which was such a weird experience because it felt like a mini reunion. And a graduation at the same time, and people's lives had changed drastically. The girl who lived across from me was holding her 3-month-old child and her husband's hand, and I was like, wow, we have really people had different last names.
Half of them didn't even come. So I was still in London at that point, so I still wanted to go, but I took a day off work, and I literally was like, I'm going for my graduation. But like so many people that already moved out of London didn't even like come back. Yeah.
Yeah, no, a lot of my friends went to graduation because, they're well within their professional lives at that point. Essentially what happened was I was planning to go into, I guess, performance career full time. So that involved going on tour. I used to do a lot of public speaking as well. And then, of course, the pandemic happened and had to exactly do that, And so I had one of two options. One was to do a complete pivot, and the other was, hey, okay, this is still what you want to go into, and sure, you can do something else, but how do you figure out in this new world to still continue in this space, right? And that's kind of when I turned to the digital world, and I saw it as a space to build community and to spark conversation and all of that. And it was a huge learning curve because I didn't use social media when I was younger. I joined Facebook when I was 17 because I was part of a Model UN conference and they were lobbying on Facebook. The only reason I joined it. And I joined Instagram when I was 20 just to make a page to be like, my first song is up, So I never used it as a consumer, so to speak. And so literally I had to spend 3 months. Part of my homework was passively scrolling for at least an hour a day to understand consumer behavior because you have to know why people are in spaces and what they're consuming to be able to offer something of value.
But I think what that would have given you is like such a fresh look at it because, for example, for me at least, I find it very difficult to break my barriers of what I should be doing on Instagram, whether it's personally or for the business. Only from the perspective that because I've been on the platform since its inception, I have a idea of it. And then if you join it when you're 20, you're literally seeing, okay, what are people doing with it today? And that gives you an edge, a big edge, in my opinion.
I think so. I think it pros and cons, right? For example, had I been on social media when that whole theater fiasco happened, I might have, had a different kickstart. But in some ways, I'm grateful that didn't happen because it maybe protected me from growing up in that way.
Also, for given that they filed an FIR, it would be quite negative.
It would. Yes, we learned that no press is bad press, but there is some that is a little too extreme. But yeah, I think definitely gave me the edge from a fresh perspective. But I do think that it was hard going in.
It would have been steep, the learning curve would have been very steep.
And not only that, I think the hardest part for me to admit in those early days was I found myself, YouTube felt like home, right? It was a long form space. I could talk to a camera. I felt like talking to a friend. That was great. And so I started long form YouTube. That was the first entry point. When short form started picking up, I was lost because I didn't understand it. It was a very different medium. And I genuinely found myself getting jealous of 16-year-old girls. And I'm like, I am 22. This is not okay, right? And I had to catch myself and say, wow, if I'm having this experience, imagine people of the same age, imagine younger folks, right, who are aspiring. So how do you create a space that might still potentially feel aspirational or inspirational, but feels like it's coming from a place of genuine connection?
Yeah. So I think to them, a lot of them, 16-year-olds now, they've grown up with social media. So it comes so naturally to them.
Absolutely.
I feel like TikTok in the US just blew up with kids. I don't think there were any adults on it.
The adults, the cool ones learned how to adapt, right? Jason Derulo was just hanging out with everybody.
So things like that. But I guess for you, given that you didn't really consume it while growing up, but you came more in the creator space head on, that's a tricky, I guess, part. But anyway, all of this was to set the scene. We want to the intention behind the episode is that we want to learn more about the behind the scenes and the business side of what social media entails. And we often online see very polished content because people put in a lot of thought to it. So can you tell us a little bit more about what are the steps before you press record and after you stop recording?
It really depends on what you're recording, right? So for example, if currently I'm doing a project where I'm doing 50 different songs in different languages, collaborating with artists globally, the first step is finding the artist, reaching out to them, scheduling time, finding the song, creating an arrangement, recording. There's so many steps that go in before, right? Sourcing the clothing, the jewelry, all of that. So that in itself is a couple week-long process at the bare minimum, right? When you meet and you record, that's a few hours, but that's also because I've been doing this for a long time, right? I think for a lot of people, it takes time to be comfortable in front of the camera. I think for other types of content, let's say it's conversational content, as simple as pressing record and having that conversation, but often that takes time to develop, right? Either you have to be a natural conversationalist, and even if you are, it's very different talking to a camera than it is to a person. So what typically helps when you create content that is somewhat informative, as well as having some sort of a skeleton, storyboard, outline, script, right? So that even if you are trying to be natural and off the cuff, at least you have some sort of a framework in your mind. So that usually helps me. There is some stuff that's completely off the cuff as well. To me, actually, some of the most enjoyable content is when I'm collaborating with other people, because it's all about the energy that we have with one another, and then how you're able to capture that in a space. And sometimes it's also the quickest. I think, no, seriously, because sometimes when you're alone, you overthink things. You might do something 10 times and you're like, I don't think this is good. When you're with somebody else, it's like, it's a vibe, it's whatever. You often don't have time, so you try to figure out what's possible in that space. But yeah, there's a lot that goes into it, right? We do a lot of education and health-based content as well. And in both of those spaces, it's really important to be credible and have your facts verified, and especially if we're doing partnerships. So that takes a long time, right? If we're doing a partnership with any kind of, say, education or health service, it's a lot of due diligence. It's a lot of the same way in which you do due diligence on a company, right? If you, as an investor, if you were trying to do due diligence on a startup you're investing in, it's very similar, because I may not be investing money, but I'm investing my time, which in this case is equivalent to that, right? I'm investing our distribution channel, I'm investing my own credibility, right? So it's a lot of behind the scenes process and research and I guess time that goes into pre-pressing record. When you press record, it's different, and depending on the nature of content, sometimes it's self to camera, sometimes you need assistance, right? A music video, for example, is a huge production that you often have cast and crew and makeup and hair and locations and all of that. So it really depends on the nature of it.
I feel like what I'm almost hearing is once you actually press record, you're at home. You feel the most comfortable once it's recording. By then you've done so much prep that hey, now I just need to be myself, do what I do.
Absolutely.
Everything else is taken care of.
Absolutely. Yeah. But the prep takes the time, right?
Exactly.
And I think if you haven't done the prep, even for a music video, right? If I don't have my production team in place, if I don't have the pieces in place, I'll be very stressed and I will not be able to give my best self on camera, right? But camera catches everything. So it's important to try your best to feel most relaxed and natural in front of it.
Yeah, and in fact, today we had good amount of time to prep.
Yeah.
And so we did so many more things, I think, than we would generally do.
Generally, yeah.
We moved the casters 5 times. Just because we could.
Relatable.
But it's also similar to us. A lot of times we spend a lot of time researching them before, and then actually it just goes in conversation and you don't even think about it.
No, of course, but especially in a interview-based podcast, right? And I'm sure you're interviewing people who are very used to being interviewed, right?
Yeah.
So
not always, but yes.
Actually, what's that like? What's it like interviewing people who don't have the?
It's awesome. Actually fun,
yeah.
To be honest, I think it's also, certain amount of credit to the lighthearted format. So once we're in a conversation, everyone loves to chat. If it's just a general fun conversation.
Most people love
and especially
themselves,
I was
right?
just gonna say that.
Didn't want to say that.
No, it's so true.
It is true, yes.
Literally, psychologically, if you get somebody to talk about themselves in your presence, they'll associate that positivity with you.
And I think if it's someone that hasn't done too many, it's their first chance of doing. For you, for example, you're repeating a lot of things that you probably have already said online in the courses of hundreds of interviews that you would have done. So I think that helps when the guest is not done too many. That aspect. Yeah.
Of course.
But so you of course mentioned that there's so many different things that happen, and when you began, it was you yourself exploring the new digital world because of the pandemic. So you would have been probably alone, a sole creator at that point. And now I assume you have a massive team behind you.
I do, yes.
Yes. So what does your team currently look like?
My team comprises full-time team, agencies, and contractors. So my full-time team is my full-time manager. She's actually based in Canada, but we've been working together in some capacity for the last 5 years.
Oh, wow.
So she's really seen me grow. Back when I was just doing music pre-pandemic, pre-digital world, to now, and she's someone I trust wholeheartedly, and I'm really grateful to have her in my corner. She's more like a business partner. if you will.
That's awesome.
Then we have an assistant, and she does so many things, and I'm very grateful for her, whether that's accompanying me to events or helping out with shoots or helping out with a lot of coordination, right? So sourcing, whether that's materials or clothes or, for example, for this kind of a project that we're doing, there's a lot of coordination that she has to do, and she's absolutely incredible at that. We recently made 2 more full-time hires. One is a social media hire, essentially, because I've been creating on multiple different platforms, and we're building out a lot of IPs that require my attention and time this year, so we just kind of wanted to automate that process a little bit. And then the other one, which we haven't, at least public-facingly started yet, but we're starting to regionalize a lot of our content, especially older educational work, and so we have somebody who's overseeing that whole workflow, and we're going to be starting with a Hindi and a Tamil channel.
Wow.
Across platforms. And then, so that's the full-time team, and then we also have a full-time hire to manage the studio space, but that's a different segment. Agencies, we work with an agency here in India, and they oversee some of our brand deals in the content space here. So they're, again, partners in that way. We have a couple agencies that we work with in the US and the UK as well. And then contractors, we have essentially a team of different editors, a team of different, depending on the nature of work, right? So if you're bringing people on for a music video or a larger project, then we have a lot of cinematographers, DOPs, etc. But the editors are the ones we contract out most frequently. Everybody else depends project to project.
And I feel like I want to link this back to when you mentioned that when you're collaborating with people, it moves faster, because the thing is, when you're a sole creator, you can take your time with it. Now you can't. You've got like agency fixed costs and like team fixed costs.
Oh, absolutely. I have people on my payroll. I have to keep moving.
Which like, of course, it's a little tough, because even like, much like in a like service business, there's no like regular stream of income, right? Like, you have an absolutely amazing year, and then have like a year where like the deals are just tougher, because brands are looking at alternate options. And I feel like since COVID, it has been a roller coaster in the digital world. So what is that like for you?
I think it's recognizing that it is that roller coaster, right? And so if you stress about firstly, a lot of people, when they enter the space, they stress about per day outcomes, right? And that's really hard, because then you will go crazy. If
you're just looking at numbers.
Just looking at numbers 24/7. A video doesn't perform. Okay, fine. Why not? It could be external factors, internal factors. Can you take a broader zoom outlook? Okay, it might be just today, but if this is happening repeatedly, how do you change strategy, right? It's you constantly have to keep experimenting and moving. But if you look at it every day, as the benchmark of your worth, that's when it gets tricky, right? It is important to look at every day. It's just a data point, but you have to treat it just as such, a data point, right? I think what's been, like you said, there have been some months that have been amazing, some months that have not, and just recognizing that that's the case. We're very clear with our budgeting. So at the top of each year, we're like, okay, this is what our expenses are likely going to be per month, and then this is our buffer. So long as we're at bare minimum meeting this, we'll be fine, because our business can run. And then how do we create spaces for everything else? Now, I do think it's important for any person, but especially when you're in a creative or more non-traditional space, to have multiple streams of income. And so we've been able to develop a few different ones, but hopefully over the next year or two, we're able to develop enough such that it's not a stressor based on these types of factors, right? Brands or other, and part of it is being able to provide value to your community and monetizing that, but not necessarily direct to consumer. That is one option, right? A lot of people will, for example, sell merchandise or offer services and things like that. That's one form. One is obviously brand partnerships. In my case, because we're also offline, right? A lot of people, their business is just simply online, but we have income through performances, through public speaking, through our, I guess, image being used in different ways. And because of my background in the education and health spaces outside of the digital space, there's a lot of work that comes through that as well, right? So it's about, in my opinion, even if you are digital first, it's important to be platform agnostic and to be able to develop streams of income and just think about your business as something that is resilient, right? In all of these spaces, because being a creator is very much like running a startup. The difference is the startup is yourself. You are also the entrepreneur, and you are also the brand.
Yeah.
Right. So something as simple as you don't take care of your health, it's not gonna function, right? And in my case, with in a lot of folks' cases in similar spaces who have people depending on them, that's you can't take a risk, right?
And like you said, like the camera notices everything.
Absolutely.
So if you stop taking care of your health, then your preaching health doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense at all. Yeah, absolutely. And then I mean, of course, there's lights and makeup and this and that, right? No, but that's only covering up what is internal, and I think what a lot of people can see through that, right? Yeah. And so those are all additive, right? But what's the core? People can tell your energy through a screen.
100%, yeah.
It's also and I feel like back in like when creator economy just started, like a lot of people just spoke about like their earnings from YouTube and like things like that. And now like over the last I think few years, a lot of creators are talking about diversifying their income and their revenue streams and things like that. So people are more like cognizant towards that. So it's nice to see like how you have also like you have a balance between offline and online and things like that.
You have to, because IP-based revenue has gone down significantly. What I mean by that is when you put out videos on YouTube, for example, you do earn from AdSense.
Yeah.
People assume you earn millions of rupees. Absolutely not. If anything, at best you earn pittance, right? Especially if your audience is mostly centered in India or the global south because of the purchasing power, equity, and all of that. So I don't even count that as a stream of income. Whatever comes in is additional, right? So, okay, this month this did well, great, that's additional income, but it's not counted in my budgeting. Because it's, even with, we also have music-based IP, right? So we have songs, you get paid peanuts from a Spotify, from any of these platforms, right? So again, to me, those are nice to haves. We consider them as like our annual additionals, but nothing that's not taken into account as our income.
Okay, so then like what do you count in terms of like the budgeting? What streams of income like accounts for majority of what your revenue is?
At the moment, it's brand partnerships and I guess brand offline leverage, meaning performance and speaking-based income, right? We are developing other IPs and things that are going to be offering more direct services, but those are all kind of in their own space and in their own time.
I also think people think that a lot, like people earn millions on YouTube is because like at the start there weren't that many creators, but now there are so many that it gets diversified. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, see, I know of a company in India that does pure like their entire business model is YouTube monetization.
Yeah.
But they do like regional music, and if you go and see like both Puri charts, etc., they're like the top 10 songs. There's like 2 or 3 of theirs. So when you're like reaching a billion views, even if it's India, because yes, CPM in India is low. But if you're reaching a billion views like 2 or 3 times in every quarter, you can actually make a decent chunk of money.
No, for sure. But I'm talking about like the average.
But I'm just saying with music, it's very complicated because music has many other forms of IP, right? Music has, it's like, for example, you have, I mean, I won't go into it, but you have the master recording as a portion of that IP. You have the composition. There's so many people in that piece of the pie. And then also because of how social media has democratized access, right? Like, for example, I've just seen in this project, because we're doing a lot of regional music within India as well, some of these songs have, you know, hundreds of millions of collective views, but that doesn't mean that's necessarily translating. What actually, a lot of people think, okay, this video has XYZ views, like this video has 100 million views, so you must be making that much money. No, actually, it's not the video itself, but the number of videos that are made to your song that determine whether you get that income or not. And in our case, it's obviously we're also recreating other people's composition work, right? So unless we create a license situation with them, we won't directly earn from that, but that's totally fine because the same would be expected for our music, right? But yeah, it's why when, you know, they say labels or companies try to do these marketing campaigns, they don't care as much about, they'll reach out to a few top creators because that will create its own ripple effect, but they'll reach out to like 500,000, 2,000, 3,000 people to the effect that even when, say, an Ed Sheeran or a really large artist puts out music, they will reach out to artists like us to cover it. Because for them, it's about, okay, we probably have a distribution channel that'll reach out to a few people, but also numbers. They care about numbers globally, even at that level where they have millions of dollars in marketing.
Interesting. I know that people obviously create the content online music, especially like what Reels is now is just on other people's music.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize that they would actively like reach out to people to like cover that. So.
Oh, absolutely. A lot of people. I mean, of course, some things pick up on their
own, like
right. Yeah. But a lot of it is
like I thought more was the organic.
I'll tell you the best example of this is Bastille. The only reason Bastille is a rich like band is because of Pompeii.
Yeah.
Nothing that they've done since Pompeii has like blown up to that extent.
Yeah.
But that's also the song. Like it's such a good song.
No, I agree, but I'm saying because of the like literally the omnipresence of Pompeii is why they're still like making a lot of money.
That is an amazing song, and I feel like there's also amazing music being created every single day. What gets sorted from the noise is either someone gets really lucky, or fortunately that talent shines through, or it's a lot of money, right? Like how much do you think the average Justin Bieber song takes to create?
To create?
Mm-hmm. If you put a price sticker on it.
I don't know, but to be honest, like you're saying including like marketing and promotion?
No.
Just to make the song?
But including the music video?
Not including the music.
Oh, not including. Oh, okay. Then like, shouldn't be that.
It's less than $500.
No, I would say more than that. Like studio space.
Yeah. $1 million.
$1 million?
Mm-hmm. Because think about it, at that level you have probably 10 writers on the song, each of whom are either getting paid directly or not. The studios that they use are at the bare minimum $2,000 an hour, and they use it for many different things. And there's mixing costs, mastering costs, editing costs, musicians costs. Making music is expensive, really expensive. It's not the same as just turning on a camera, right? So approximately $1 million, give or take what the video is. If the video is crazy, then it'll be a little bit more than that. If it's not, then 1.2 is what you'll kind of get everything in. But how much do you think the marketing expense is on average?
$5 million.
At least 7 to 10x, right?
So, because it's like we've spoken about this before, it's distribution.
It's distribution, and it's what a lot of the music industry relies on is mere exposure effect, right?
Yeah.
Everywhere, so then you start liking it. Of course, there's amazing songs, but we all know songs that if you hadn't heard it so many times, you may not have given it another listen, you know?
But I think the difference is, like, for example, with Justin Bieber, right?
Yeah.
Someone like him needs to put that 10 million behind every song that he's creating, or at least the flagship song of the album. He needs to do that.
I don't think he needs to, actually. He would be the last person to need, in my opinion.
No, because the thing is, his ability is to turn the 10 into like 20, 30, 40.
Yeah.
I'm seeing someone like, I don't know, like if you take local Indian artists, etc.,
yeah.
they could probably get it done under $1,000 and then hope to blow up. You know?
Yeah.
So like,
I think when you start out, definitely, I think not spending even close to $1,000. But I feel like for him, given that he's putting so much in marketing, because I would assume that like they just go on so many late night shows, like that itself would just give so much in marketing. That for them to then email people, like smaller artists, to ask to cover, or like globally reach out, like that, I was like that was.
It's all about amplification, right? Because you have that golden window, and that's about it, right?
Yeah.
Even with Indian artists, you're saying, of course, there's folks who've done stuff from their bedroom, which doesn't cost, but bare minimum, the cost is $1,000, $2,000, right? If anything, and often it's more.
Yeah.
Just because there's so many costs that go into it that people don't realize, right? It's recording costs, it's studio costs, it's editing, mixing, mastering. There's so many things, and so
there's only so much you can do on your own.
In fact, I know a lot of, like, couple of artists, not a lot, two to be exact.
Exactly a couple.
Exactly a couple. So what they do is, while they're like trying to get their journey going, they actually do songwriting and mixing for other artists because it's a good source of
income. Not only that, it's very hard to make. There's only a handful of artists today in India who can live off of their streaming income, and I can name them for you: Anuv, Pratik, and maybe Ritviz. Obviously, actually, it's not even obvious because I don't know what King's situation is with his label. I don't know what Diljit's situation is with his label. And, you have Arman and all of those folks as well. But even like an Arijit and all, today, of course, they can.
Yeah.
But a majority of their songs, like even Arman, a majority of his catalog is for film.
Yeah.
Right? And so he's not getting that money as royalty. That's
what they do.
No.
Because
when you are a playback singer,
the producer owns the music.
It's not even necessarily the producer. Often it's the film, right? The production company.
Like, I mean the production house. Not
the production house. The music director. So in the same way that you have a flute player come and feature on the song. The voice is just a feature on the song, right? That's norm in that recording industry. In fact, huge artists are getting paid maybe like 50,000 rupees a lakh, because for them they'll make money off of the live shows once the song is
good.
But I mean, it's still an unfair system, right? But the point being, very few people. And even when I say Anuv's making it off of streaming, just streaming alone isn't enough. He does a few live shows and is able to charge well because he has a very solid audience.
Yeah.
That's the only reason. Otherwise, making money off of music is so hard. Yeah. Most artists are either working a part-time job or, like you said, they're songwriting for others, producing, doing other music-based services, or performing, and many of them will do, a private gig, meaning like a wedding or something else, to make that income, because the creation is expensive.
Like, for example, in our movie, we have like A.R. Rahman doing music.
Yeah.
So he charges a lot.
Of course.
But that's A.R. Rahman.
But then we own the music rights.
Yeah.
So like, if the movie does well, when we go to sell the music rights, we hope to also make money off of just the music rights.
It's a buyout.
Because wasn't there like a particular movie that just made so much money out of the music rights? Like, am I making this up?
I'm sure.
Yeah. Made a lot out of them. Like any of the top movies.
Like even like Kesaria or something like that, like they made so much money off the. Yeah, I thought they still got like a percentage, but clearly, like, I'm not aware of.
Yeah, I mean,
you can have a revenue share.
Yeah, you can have
like the deals can go as intricate as you want it to be, but
it's just think of it as think of it like the startup world, right? You have a VC, right? And so the VC is either the label or the production house in this case, and they are either going to when you have a VC investing, they'll want a share, right? And for a lot of people, when you're really early starting out, you end up with a fraction of the percentage, right? Because they often want ownership. And then you have other investors, other people involved, other people get royalties. So, yeah.
I just saw this like a reel where Anuv Jain was saying that he charged 10,000 rupees for his show of like 100 people in Chandigarh. Now, and then he's like, now I charge like between 30 to 35, and he just said that, and like the entire comments was like, is it 1,000 lakhs? Like, what is this? Because it's like this, like, because obviously 35,000 is very less. It's most probably lakhs, but like it was just so funny to see
it is
that.
lakhs.
Like, so, but it was just like from where to where. He was like, that time I was like, should I charge them? That was like back in the day, and then to where. But it's all about like the time and effort that you put before that you're getting.
Absolutely, and I think he's an incredible artist, but he's not a good case study because that's a very rare occurrence. He's not even put out an album, not even an EP.
It's all like
it's all singles, and it's genuine, love for the music, and then of course he's had a lot of support from the industry as well as things started to pick up, which is amazing to see that ecosystem that's been built. But for a lot of aspiring artists, looking to him as a case study is an absolute no-no because that's a genuinely 1 in a billion. Chance of that happening.
He doesn't even have like songs in his like backup songs. He works just on one song. At a time.
And that's my point. Most artists don't have that luxury, right? And I mean, he's put in a lot of hard work and effort, but the circumstances of which that have happened are just very unique.
No, for sure. Fair. So speaking about music and the entire industry, but more particularly now your music, you often address a lot of societal issues, and how do you approach that entire process of crafting that song, and not only to entertain people but also to like provoke that thought and conversation that goes into putting it all together? And I think actually also the entertaining part, because a lot of time people only listen to music to entertain themselves, and you're trying to include like a thought-provoking conversation. So a lot of times people might not be okay to like have that in like their spare time. So how do you balance both of them?
It's a totally valid point. Most people look to art as escapism, right?
And
so they're already dealing with these issues. They don't want to deal with it in something they're using to escape. But some of my favorite genres of film and TV are those which are able to, be very pop culture-esque, but also subtly put in certain issues, right? And doing that in music is not as easy because you don't often have the visual medium to rely on. You can have a music video, but a lot of people are just listening, right? So there's 2 songs of mine in particular that were interesting to craft. One is a song called Suntolo, which is about mental health, and we knew that if people connected with the song, they would potentially reach out with their own experiences, and so prior to even releasing, we partnered with 50 different mental health organizations and made sure that we had accessible or subsidized therapy available, and a lot of different things. And we partnered with a lot of different, essentially Gen Z creators who were friends of mine, just to amplify the message, because for a lot of young people, this was essentially a peak pandemic. They were going through it, right? Yeah. And not everybody had the good fortune to be in a space where they got that sense of privacy or let alone therapy, but even a space to process their own emotions and feelings. Because for a lot of people who live in multi-family, single-room homes, or whatever the situation might be, they didn't have that, right? And so for us, now the word mental health in Hindi is mansik sehat. Now if my song was like hamari mansik sehat something, we all be like, what is this? And turned it off, right? So we were like, okay, deep-rooted, what's that core emotion? You want to feel seen and you want to feel heard, right? So that's when we used Suntolo as that framework. But it's not in an abyss. Often we feel like it's in an abyss. So what we did was we crafted it as like a call and response, right? So Suntolo, and then stuff that society says to you, just things like "Log kya kahenge," "Muskura ke dekho, you'll be fine," those types of things. And then even in the video, we wanted to make sure we represent people from different areas of life, right? So that was very thoughtfully, and then because my Hindi vocabulary is not as vast, so I collaborated with a poet from Jaipur actually, and we did a lot of due diligence and research. I had him watch like 10, 15 videos on people speaking about their experiences with mental health. We really just wanted to dive deep into what is that core emotion that somebody who's going through something might feel and want to express, right? Rather than throwing preachy words in your face. Similarly, we have a song called Permission, which is about consent, right? And now a lot of the messaging around consent, naturally speaking, because that is the nature of it, is no means no, right? And however, for a lot of people who are not naturally open to it, something like that turns them off. And it shouldn't, but you have to recognize that that's the gap, right? And so how do you reframe consent as being sexy, for example, which it is, very much is, right? And a lot of people feel like, oh, it's so tiresome to constantly ask. It should be dynamic once I've gotten consent. But that's why, again, our cultural fabric, marital rape is not illegal, right? Because it's like, okay, I have consented to now being with this person forever, and therefore I can do whatever I want to them and their body. And a lot of that goes back to how we think of people as property and all of that, right? But essentially, we were like, okay, how do we say, we've used the word consent in the song, but how do we say it without being preachy? And so we're like, okay, what are ways in which we want to address that? So we're like, okay, permission, admission, green light, right? Speeding it up, slowing it down, like if you want to just say you want it, right? Like just like basic signals. And actually, when we constructed the song, we constructed it from the music production first, before the lyrics. And we researched a lot of bedroom playlists and found what the average BPM or the rhythm beats per minute is, because apparently that's also the ideal thrusting speed. And so yeah, that's how it, because and even in my vocal delivery, I've kept it very soft and husky because I didn't want it to be loud and in your face, right? I wanted it to kind of be something that you might want to put on when you're like want to get into the mood, or just slow jams, vibes. Because we wanted it to feel subliminal in that sense, right? So if it happens to be on your bedroom playlist, you'll also subliminally get the message. Fair.
Oh my god, I love the psychology behind like all of this.
Very interesting. The level of like different thoughts that have gone into making that happen. But I just wanted to like quickly mention one thing about one of the previous things you said, which is like when you're trying to like raise awareness around like social issues through film, TV, music, etc. I feel like you can be either in your face about it, or like make it more like undertoned. And I feel like just a great example of that is the TV show Euphoria. So there's a lot of TV shows out there, that do have a message, a strong one that is out there. Like they speak about it. There's two characters on TV talking about the issue, but like Euphoria doesn't actually address any issue directly. Right? Like everything about diversity and inclusion, that's just how the normal is in that TV show.
Seen, and
it's just seen. Exactly. It just exists.
Absolutely.
To a certain extent, sex education, similar.
For sure. One of my favorite, I don't think it aired in India, but one of my favorite TV shows growing up was this show called The Fosters, which was it honestly taught me so much about adoption, fostering. It had the youngest gay kiss on TV ever. Just a lot of different themes, and then they actually had a spin-off show which touched upon things like polyamory and communal living and things like that. Honestly, stuff that I might have even been more closed-minded to, and it's the TV show that opened my mind to it. So it's really. I mean, there's so many examples of that. And some do it well, some do it where it's like, okay, now we must insert this,
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Some are like a little too in your face, and that's where I feel like when after I'm like towards the end of an episode and I'm like reflecting and I'm like, oh, this had like all of these things, and like it just even the impact is more.
But it's one of the reasons I've always been interested in this intersection of when you watch a film in theaters, what comes before the film besides the acts?
The trailers.
The trailers, yeah. Besides the trailers,
like the national
anthem, and there's always one more thing.
Smoking.
No, exactly, the PSA, the no smoking PSA, right? It's this Mukesh that's often badly dubbed, not well done, and on my gap year, I was also Harvard has a public health research center, actually very close to y'all's office, and so I was helping them set it up, and a lot of the people involved with that were in the tobacco research space. So I was very curious. I was like, hey, does this even have any impact, right? Because what I've noticed as someone who's split time between the US and India her whole life is a lot of the messaging here was, you will ruin your family, your daughter will die because of you, Whereas in the US, it's like, you're just gonna screw up your lungs, right? And it showed more of that visceral nature. And I was like, interesting, the individualistic versus collectivistic, exactly. And what a lot of the researchers said, I mean, it's hard to do a causation or even a proper correlation study in something like this, but they've done longitudinal studies and essentially observed that in theaters where they started airing this PSA, surrounding areas, the purchasing of tobacco products went down. And I'm like, wow, well, if something as not well produced as that can make an impact, what happens when something is well produced, right?
Yeah, no, that's very direct, and sometimes it's too gruesome to see. So, he's got me another smoking. But no, like the whole individualistic collectivistic thing is really. I actually did my extended essay in that, the more like towards saving patterns, like comparing the Western saving patterns to India and China and things like that.
That's super interesting.
Cool. Let's move on to our games. We've got some games for you again. This one's called Two Truths and a Lie. So to understand more about your journey, you're going to give us 3 statements, 2 of which are true and 1 of them is a lie. It could be about your personal journey, it could be about your experience with your business, anything, challenges, achievements, whatever you wish. We are going to have to guess the lie. So you just give us 3 statements, we'll guess which one's the lie.
Okay. I was born with a hole in my heart, which caused my pure and impure blood to be mixed, and the doctors thought that I would die the next day. When I was 11 years old, I woke up with what I thought was period cramps, and instead was actually my intestines having gotten twisted in such a way that is extremely abnormal, and had to have all the tests possible to get that checked out. And when I was 17, I broke my leg and actually have a metallic plate in my thigh, and so I can't go through regular metal detectors.
Oh God. I'm sad that 2 of these are true.
Yeah, it's kind of.
I had another one, but I told you that the whole brain virus thing.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with the metal plates being a lie.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with that one. I think that's a lie. Is it?
That is the lie. That was too much of a detail.
No, I was just hoping you won't lie about the whole. Like that's too deep to lie.
To be honest, one of the things I try to do, like when we're playing this game, is to try to figure out the person's style.
Yeah.
I feel like you have a very clear tell.
Really? What is my
your eyebrows? Like when you said the first 2, your face was like straight, and the third one, your eyebrows went up like 3-4 times.
Damn it! My face is too expressive.
So any YouTube video you ever put out, they now know your tell.
Now they might tell if I'm clearly lying.
Oh my God. But yeah, so our next game is called Red Flags. We're gonna give you 3 situations. In each situation, 2 things are going well, and then 1 that's not so great, which is the red flag. And then you have to assume that these situations are true, and we've adapted them for you. And you have to pick which one of the situation you would rather be in.
Okay.
So situation one, you have just released a music video and it has gone viral with millions of views and positive comments. You set up your own NGO to tackle societal issues like mental health, women's health, and education. But due to unfortunate circumstances, you completely lose your YouTube channel. Situation two, you're asked to sing a song for a Bollywood movie. You launch a fundraising campaign on social media to provide free period products at public bathrooms, which surpasses its initial fundraising goal. But you face a copyright infringement claim from a lesser known artist who alleges similarity between one of your songs and theirs. And situation three, you have received an award for your social impact. The engagement on your YouTube channel has seen a boost, resulting in your ad revenues to increase by 5x. But you face a creative block and are unable to write a song for the next 3 years. We can make the YouTube channel increase by 50x, given that you said it doesn't contribute that much. I'm not gonna lie, it took me a while.
I honestly, like, before you said the red flags part of it, I was like, these will all be amazing situations. Wow, I hope you manifest them into the world. I would actually go with situation 2, which the reason for that is usually when you're singing on a film project, you are not directly involved with the composition, and even if you are, there's so many other people who are involved with that. And so number one, it's almost like a shared blame, so to speak. And number two, the issue with music is nothing can be truly original, right? Which is why I would avoid situation 3, because if I'm facing a block for 3 years, that's a little bit insane, right? Because creative block is not just musically and other, it affects everything else, right? And I think that I would be in that situation. I would obviously issue a public apology. I would mention specific things and where that inspiration came from, if it did or not, and use it as an opportunity to highlight that artist's work and hopefully, have people see that artist's work as well. And given that there's also these fundraising campaigns providing free period products, like, I would choose that any day.
I've done a lot of research into creative laws around the world. There's no single country in the world that has got it right. Like, it's impossible to get creative laws right.
Absolutely.
And I feel like,
because it's so amorphous,
you need to do what you do, as long as like you in your own head know you've not like infringed on someone's work.
And there's obviously chances of things being similar, right? Then there's ways to rectify that. Like I said, making sure you highlight that person's work. If it really is very similar, give them a license, right? Where then they become a sampling license. Like, there's ways to deal with that situation. With the other situations, it's like a little bit harder to deal with.
Fair enough.
Cool. Let's proceed to our last game. Since the rapid fire, self-explanatory. Quick,
I'm
short.
Really bad at rapid fires.
It's okay.
I'm really bad at the rapid part of it.
It's fine. No, honestly, no one is rapid on a rapid fire. We should change the name. Like, I don't think.
Quick fire. Like, we're firing the questions quick, we take it out.
Just like short question.
Cool. So, how many days have you taken off social media in the last year?
0.
Wow. Did you ever question whether it was worth it?
I didn't know this would be my path, and I don't know what in 5 years it'll be. I just want to make sure that I am trying to be consistent to my mission of using my voice as a medium.
Okay. Interesting. So, what is the weirdest place you've ever worked from?
I've worked from the strangest places, like on top of a car,
On top of a car?
In the bathroom, because there was no space and I needed signal.
Wait, how does that work?
Like, there's the area where the luggage sits. Right? It wasn't a moving car. I just needed to be. Because I wasn't getting signal anywhere else. I can name weirder, but like, I've worked from everywhere.
Interesting. What has been your proudest moment so far?
When 3 of my grandparents were alive, this was back in 2016. I was performing at the Gateway of India for the 26/11 terror attack memorial. All my grandparents are doctors. I mean, now some of people see a couple of them on the internet, particularly my auntie. But at the time, they didn't really understand. I'm still in college, but they didn't really understand me going into a non-traditional path, particularly artistically, right? And I think essentially one of my grandparents had passed, but the other 3 were there, and it was a very proud moment for them, because me performing at a club or at a festival with 30,000 people would not have meant as much to the cause and the venue and everything that was there. And my grandfather, who passed right at the beginning of the pandemic, actually, we called him Baba, shortly after started losing his memory and had severe dementia. And so the thing is, like, as a kid, he would just remember me as a smart kid or like, oh, show, but that became his core memory of me. And so if a plumber would visit his house, he'd be like, "Bogi toy wala performance," right? He'd just like talk about that, and he won this national award for his work in the medical space, and they gave him the award. They also gave him this turban, and he chose to give it to me as like, whatever path you choose, like, use the same excellence, you know.
Wow, that's
really
nice.
Very nice.
Yeah. What is the one time you felt like you let your audience down?
I really hope I haven't let them down. I think I had a situation a couple of years ago where I was severely memed and trolled and, you know, on all of these reaction pages and things. And I wouldn't change what I did, but I think I was already going through a tough time myself, so it was harder for me to protect my community from other people. And when you have people who are just out to get you, and if someone's discovered you from a meme page, right, and in a way that people have said nasty things about you, they're going to come and, in their anonymous way of trying to release their insecurities, say certain things. And it really angered me that there were, 28-year-old jobless men arguing with 13-year-old girls, and making their lives uncomfortable. And so I wish that I'd had it was hard to have foresight, but I wish that I'd had stronger community tools at that point to just protect our community. Because I think there were people who, for example, say might have been defending us or saying certain things, and because of the trolling they were receiving by doing that, might have been less inclined to be as engaged.
Interesting. What is the scrappiest thing you've done to build your digital presence?
I mean, everything is jugaad in this world. Everything is scrappy and like experimental. I cannot pinpoint one thing for you.
I love that you use the word jugaad. Like whenever any guest asks, like, what do you mean by that?
Change the question.
I'm always like, what's the most jugaadu thing you've done? And it's like, you got it yourself.
What's your favorite brand to collaborate with?
I don't know if I have a favorite brand, to be honest, but I do like collaborating with a lot of ed tech and health tech brands. I think particularly in India, a lot of them are doing really impactful work. And so I think those are some of my favorite types of collaborations.
Okay, what was your favorite live performance experience?
I think it was early on. This was in 2018 in different cities in Mumbai, in India, they organize like township festivals. So there's the Worli Festival, there's a few others. So Malad also does one, and it's called Malad Masti. And this is back in 2018, where I didn't have a presence online, right? So I was asked to perform, and it was 30,000 people. What was really cool was it was short, but they didn't allow food and certain kinds of essentially single-use plastic because they didn't want to litter. I think the reason that performance was really cool is because it was the first time I would sing something and I asked them to sing it back, and hearing that many people sing something back to you was just insane, right? And I appreciated the general, because sometimes I performed at many festivals since, and the culture can be very chaotic. I think because this was also organized by the local government official, there were other regulations, but essentially when everything broke, I was heading back to where I was heading. I think it was I was on stage, so people assumed I was known, so they were all kind of semi-mobbing me. That was my first bodyguard experience as well, like a human chain. But what was really cool was literally the organizers were like, hey, make sure women and children get home safely. There was a line of people hailing autos and share autos, cabs, and making sure people got in. And you don't have to do that, but that cultural norm that was created was beautiful.
Interesting. What is your own favorite song, and what's your favorite song from another artist?
I get the question. I think one of my most, they're all honest, but I think one of my most honest songs is a song called Give Up, that I released a couple of years ago. And yeah, I think that that is the song of mine that when I'm feeling in those emotions can make me emotional too. So I think therefore I enjoy it the most. And what is my favorite song from another artist? That is like such a hard question. If you give me an artist, I can tell you my favorite song from their catalog.
Okay, one of your top artists.
Also a very difficult question.
A comfort song.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Well, I guess since I'm in the zone, it's not necessarily a comfort song, but another song that I cry to is have you heard To Build a Home by Cinematic Orchestra? No, it's beautiful and yeah. Not my favorite song doesn't mean that it's the one I cry to, but it invokes a lot of emotion in me.
All right. What is the most you have spent on a music video?
I think collectively 4 lakhs.
Okay. And do you prefer books or podcasts?
Both and neither. What I mean by that is I love both, and I know that it's hard for me to stop, so I don't read as much anymore because a lot of people, for example, the only time I would have to read is before bed, and then I would just stay up reading and be obsessed with it. So there's, I avoid that habit now. And with podcasts, I think podcasts are a little bit easier to listen to, but again, if I'm really invested, I'll want to keep listening. So I try to do both in moderation. But to be fair, I've listened to more podcasts than I have read books in the last year, so I would have to say podcasts.
Okay. iPad or notebook?
I don't own an iPad, so notebook.
Okay. Are you a morning person or a night owl?
At the current moment, I need sleep person. I used to be such a morning person when I was in school, even college. I just think the nature of the industries that I'm in, with a lot of the late night, events and things, have shifted that. And then COVID really messed that up for me because I was finishing up. I don't know where you were when you were finishing up college in London. Were you in London or were you here?
I came back in March. Like we came back in March.
Yeah, same. So I came back in March as well. And I was sleeping at 9 a.m. because US time, right? So I think since then, my sleep schedule has really taken a toll. As someone who would have much preferred to like get up at 3, 4 a.m., I don't remember the last time I did that unless I had to for a flight or a shoot. For example, last night, don't follow this at home, kids, but last night I had a shoot that went super late, and then I had a lot of like a deadline of work to finish, so I slept at 2, but then I had to wake up at 6:30 because I could have canceled, but I had committed to playing a badminton tournament in the morning, so yeah, I need to take a nap today. Another shoot of mine got canceled, so I've scheduled nap in my calendar.
Yeah, there are times when I do that with this.
Yeah, this is so comfortable. I was like, this would be so cozy.
What's your favorite social media?
I'd have to say it used to be YouTube, but now I would say Instagram.
Okay.
Oh, that's very interesting that you switched from YouTube to Instagram.
I would have thought it would have been Instagram.
Like I've never heard anyone go from YouTube to Instagram. Like it's generally Instagram to YouTube.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the only reason for that is, I still consume both, obviously, but I do like the fact that on Instagram it can feel a little bit more personal.
Cool. So that concludes the rapid fire segment, bringing us to the end of our conversation. But there's one last thing. So we ask every guest of us to ask our next guest a question. So first, we're going to ask you your question from our previous guest.
I would want to know your thoughts on whether being bootstrapped is a boon or a bane, or the other way around also, whether being super funded is a boon or a bane.
And it's a great question. I mean, they're both boons and banes, and they're both. I've seen both sides to it. In our case, we've been bootstrapped and building, but I have seen. My dad's an entrepreneur in the tech space, and a couple of his companies have been very well funded, and a couple of them have been bootstrapped. And I've seen the stressors in both ways, right? I think when you're bootstrapped, you tend to retain more control, equity. If you have a win, then it's so much more beneficial, a financial win, or even just building product win. But the stress levels are insane. You end up trying to do as much regard as you can to collect whatever you can. You tend to live life in a way that feels very restrictive. And I think if you're younger, you have the appetite for that. But I've seen that happen when people are older, like friends of mine who are, say, in their 30s and 40s, who have families and other responsibilities. And it's hard. It's really hard, where you feel like you can't excel, right? Now the thing about being fully funded, obviously, I think a lot of people honestly are more risk taking when it comes to other people's money. So it allows them to have a bigger canvas, which is nice. But you lose a lot of control and equity. And the music industry, for example, it's the same debate. Are you an independent artist or are you working with a label? And a lot of people work with labels and leave because they realize they value their control and their independence more. So in my specific case, in the worlds that I'm in, I would much prefer being bootstrapped. But I can see for certain types of industries where fully funded makes sense, especially if you're a huge operational business, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a lot of brick and mortar, you have a lot of that kind of investment. Makes a lot of sense to have that funding.
Fair enough. So yeah.
Very nice, nicely
Holistic.
answer.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the end of our conversation.
Thank
Amazing.
you so much.
Of
It's
course.
been an absolute pleasure. And I think, very different industry and something that I didn't know much about. So it was a lot of fun.
I'm glad. I hope it was fun.
Did you enjoy the format?
I did very much, yes.